about a minute and a half, but I can start to explain some of the things that she's doing today. She started off by cooking some seasonal vegetables. So what she has here is the carrots, a little bit of squash, some onion, potato, and she would have cooked this right over the open hearth. It's cooling right now. When she gets back, she's going to cook a pork loin, and she's going to use the tin kitchen to cook that. So she's going to skewer that loin inside, move the tin kitchen right next to the fire. It's also called a reflector oven, so the heat kind of goes all the way around the meat. And then using this little lever here, every 20 minutes or so, she's going to turn it, so that, you know, over time it will cook on all sides. That'll probably take her about an hour and a half or 2 hours to cook the pork loin. They tell me that anything you can cook at your home today, you could have cooked in colonial times over an open hearth. And the way that you would regulate the temperature is by the proximity of the food to the fire. So, for example, if you wanted to have something simmer,
get over there.
Yep, something to simmer, maybe not too hot, you use a short. These are called S-hooks. So you use a short hook, and you would move it to the edge of the fire. That's a low temperature. If you wanted to have something much hotter, let's say to boil water or to get something really going, you'd use a longer S-hook and put it right over the fire. So that's how you adjust the temperature. Okay?
Back in a minute.
Okay, I'll point out one other thing to you. You see, young lady, what do you think that is back there? Any idea? It's a bake oven. I wouldn't have known that either unless somebody told me, so don't worry about it.
We're teaching you. We're getting you.
But the way you would use that is you would put the wood in there and get a fire going, good and hot. And after about an hour and a half or 2 hours, the bricks would be as hot as they can get inside. It's all lined with bricks. At that point, you take all of the ashes and the coals out, and then you would start baking. And what you would do is you would bake the things that required the most heat first. So you'd probably start by baking bread. And then when the bread was done and the temperature, you know, the bricks had lost a little bit of heat, you might go with, let's say, a pie or a cake, and then maybe some cookies. And then it's getting cool, you might put some custard in there. And if you're baking beans, you'd probably put the pot of beans in the back and leave it there all day long. But typically, if you're in the rural areas, you'd only bake once a day, or excuse me, once a week, because it's very time consuming. You cook literally all day. But if you lived in a city like Portsmouth or, you know, Boston, there are probably bakeries around. You wouldn't necessarily have to bake all that often. The other way you would bake, if you had something small that you wanted to bake, you could use a Dutch oven. This is what a Dutch oven looks like.
Or a bake kettle.
Or a bake kettle. And I'll let you take over at this point, so I can make my appointed rounds.
Okay, I'll leave that, if you just put that back, please.
I will.
Thank you. Yeah, the Boy Scouts call them bake kettles, Dutch ovens. We don't find people that call them Dutch ovens in that time period.
Well, that's good to know. Bake kettles.
Bake kettles.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome to Wheelwright, as you probably guessed. We're doing food history in here, and there's a nice lady, unless she's at lunch, when I was at lunch, who's doing shake the boxes in there. The shake the box lady. Today, I'll talk about anything. What I'm going to do right now, though, I see my fire dwindling down here, and I need the hot coals so I can bake, so I can roast my pork. Does anybody have any questions so far?
No, so far.
I can cook everything here, and I can cook it in the same amount of time. It's just that I can't just go away and leave it. I need to remember to get stuff, to keep it going and everything. Let's see. What do I want? I know what I want. I want a nice chunk of that. Stick of butter. You can't go wrong if you stop with a stick of butter. And I Melted it down, and I've got onions, potatoes, carrots, and rutabaga. And I just put it over the fire and stirred it up a few times. And now it's a little crusty from being on the bottom, and they're all done. Now, the main course. We're gonna do roast loin of pork. I cook seasonally. It's a little pushing it to get to roast pork at this point in time. You usually didn't kill the big animals until you were sure you could keep the meat from spoiling before it got either used up or preserved. And you know, think about, what am I going to preserve from a pig? Tell me.
Bacon.
Bacon. Ham.
Salt pork?
Salt pork. Hocks, all that good stuff. But you know, you don't just wave your magic wand and it becomes a ham. It can take up to 2 months to get a ham figured. So, you wait until it's really, really cold. And usually pigs would go to heaven around here around the middle, the latter part of November. But we're not open in November, so, and I really like the way the pork tastes. Technically, we don't roast in our modern ovens. If you don't believe me, think about when you've got the turkey in there and you open it up and all the steam billows out. Technically we steam in our ovens. A roast means that you've got the meat and you've got heat and the air circulates around. That's why it tastes better when you cook it outside on the grill. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take my loin of pork here. And if you'll excuse me just 1 second, I forgot my seasonings in here. It's a little difficult because unlike the lady who lived here,